Mion and the others, having finished setup for the Tartarigoroshi festival or something, invited me along, but I refused. Of course I did. How could they be taking it easy and setting up for a festival in this situation? Mion had a lot of nerve. The first thing I did when I got back was to take a shower. Not because I wanted to wash off sweat, it was because I wanted to be even calmer. I already understood this, but killing that man would be so very easy. The really hard thing would be not getting arrested for it, so we could get our peaceful days back. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't easy. Japan's police force have the highest arrest rate in the world. I would need to deceitfully pull off the perfect crime, and it couldn't be a half-hearted attempt. Still, it wasn't 100%. Even the best police force in the world couldn't have a 100% arrest rate. I read a lot of articles on trials with people brought up on false charges. They do a lot to determine whether they really were false accusations, but figuring out who the real criminal was usually out of the question. And that meant perfect crimes did exist. In fact, perfect crimes were sort of like the works of art. They could even be respected and revered. You just had to look at the inundation of mystery. I am unsure of how that word is pronounced. Inundation of mystery novels everywhere throughout history. They dealt with all sorts of difficult-to-solve incidents involving secret rooms and alibis and stuff. They all wanted to show one thing. They wanted to show the beauty of a perfect crime. There was something divine in the flawlessness of the word perfect. Yes, perfect crimes were skills of the gods. And, in that sense, the serial freak deaths they were calling the curse of Oshiro-sama, I understood. They must have been the works of gods. Each one appeared to have been resolved, but they couldn't stop it from happening every year. Yeah, skills belonging only to gods. Those are perfect crimes. And I would be sitting up on my own crime before Oshiro-sama's series of perfect crimes 4 years in the running. If I, too, were to put it boldly, I was challenging a god. Foolhardiness would be needed to make the decision, but I needed to be calm, cool, colder than ice to put that plan together. Kill him like a flame. But as systematic as ice. Starting now, I needed to retrain both of those ideas within me. Modeling my crime after a mystery novel wasn't actually a bad thing to focus on. Sometimes kidnapping involving disturbing original methods that made it into the newspaper were used as a basis for novels after the person was arrested. Stuff like that made it into the news. Day and night, for a very long time, mystery novel authors polished and refined their most fantastic artistic crimes. Imitating that could be a shortcut to planning the perfect crime in a short period of time. Of course, I haven't read enough mystery novels to act all high and mighty about them. The one who really liked mystery novels was my mom. She read every well-known mystery novel from overseas, from past and present. Every time she watched mystery shows, she would always criticize them as having cheap tricks or being poorly thought out. I wonder what the perfect crime would mean to her. What do I think the most well-done perfect crime in all the mystery novels I've read is? Yeah. Well, you read quite a lot of them, right? I figured you might know a lot about them. It's more fun to read them to find out. If I told you all the tricks right off the bat, they'd be no fun anymore. It wasn't like I was asking for my own amusement. She was deflecting the question so that I would somehow butter her up first and draw out an answer. Of course, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is my top recommendation. And Murder on the Orient Express used some great bold tricks too. Of course, I didn't see it coming at all. I didn't want to know which novels you liked. I wanted to know about the trick that made you the most surprised. If it really was a perfect trick, the detectives wouldn't be able to solve the case, though. That was true. Then there'd be no point. Mystery novels are enjoyable because of the processes of the mysteries getting solved. If it was unsolvable, it wouldn't make a very good topic for a novel. I get it. Yeah, you're right. If the main character can't solve it, it wouldn't be much of a story. Was I being too simplistic? A mystery novel was basically a game. They were written so that you could get to the goal, so that you could solve them. But I couldn't use something so optimistic. It needed to be the be-all, end-all of tricks so that we could, without doubt, return to our old lives. By the way, Kiichi, do you understand that truly perfect crimes don't even become stories? Mom looked at me intellectually and grinned impishly. I never gotten to read it, but apparently one time a long time ago, Mom had written her own mystery novel and submitted it for some mystery novel award. Apparently, she was really into it. Don't even become stories. What does that mean? Kiichi, what are the essential parts of a story? A beginning, a middle, and an end? Correct. The beginning, of course, is especially important. If there is no beginning, then the story never starts. Well, yeah. If nothing happened, nothing would begin. Right. Nothing happened, so there wouldn't even be an incident. Detectives wouldn't be called, so there wouldn't be any mystery. There would be no mystery, so there would be no solution. In other words, it would be the ultimate perfect crime. Wait a second. Could you explain that again? My mom just told me something absurd. And she was saying it so smoothly, too, so I kind of tuned her out, but she said something extremely important just now. It's not really that difficult to understand. The incident just has to never come to light, that's all. Just has to never come to light? For example, how about this? Say there's an old man living deep in a forest nobody goes out to. Uh-huh. And one day the old man gets killed by an axe. And, let's say the criminal was the old man's son. He went to the old man's house and they were drinking together, but they got into a fight and he killed them. What an extremely cheap plot. It was an impulsive crime without a bit of planning. It was pretty far from a perfect crime. But Kiichi, the house was really, really deep in this forest. So deep in the mountains that nobody would ever go out that far. Then his son would go back to town and say, the old man was doing fine. What about that is a perfect crime? Kiichi, this incident would only begin when it was found out the old man was killed. If nobody ever visited the old man's house after that, that beginning would never occur. The beginning would never occur. So basically, the story wouldn't start, the incident wouldn't come to light, and they wouldn't call in detectives. And nobody would be suspicious in the first place, so there would be no mystery. They'd think the old man was still living all by himself deep in the forest. And the old man's face would appear on the sky, and that would be it. Appear in the sky. Something like that, you know? That's amazing. That's a pretty great trick. But it wouldn't be a novel. Mystery novels are for entertainment, after all. They can't be instruction manuals for perfect crimes. I was trying hard to talk cheerfully to fool her, but inside I was excited. Special tools, strange geography, mysterious drugs, traps involving huge sums of cash, none of them were needed for perfect crimes. The important thing was that there wasn't a beginning. As long as the incident didn't come to light, it would be fine. Speaking broadly, if I could kill him without anyone finding out, and dispose of his corpse somewhere no one could find, it would basically already be a perfect crime. Of course, if someone up and vanished one day all of a sudden, people would get suspicious. But that didn't apply to this man. Last year, after their aunt died, he ran away from the village in fear of Oshiro-sama. When the night of Watanagashi came around again, everyone would have to think that he ran away in fear again. I mean, He'd had been living with his lover in town. No matter what it felt like when he vanished, no one would be suspicious. People hated him, after all. No one would care where he went if he disappeared. When I thought about it like that, it got easier and easier to imagine killing him. There was no point in thinking inside my house anymore. I left, getting my bike out of the garage. For now, it didn't matter where I was going. I just rode through the wind, trying to calm my excitement by feeling the cool air on my body. Where I'd kill him, how I'd do it, what time, and how to dispose of the corpse. If I just had those 4 things, I could get a good plan going. I was so surprised at how little there was to decide that I shivered. I'd been completely prepared to build this humongous plan over a really long period of time, but if I just get these little things in order, I could put it into motion. Today was Saturday. I would have to kill him on the night of Tartarigoroshi, so as long as I was standing in for Oshiro-sama, I only had 24 hours remaining. Satoko, just hang on for 24 more hours. I can't even imagine having to suffer through even more, but please, hold out for a little longer. I know you can't even last another second. I know that. But please, just hold out. Your Nini will save you for sure. Outside, it was still early enough for those cicadas to be crying. Early afternoon. Evening was still a long way off. I looked at the sky. At some point, it had gotten cloudy. Come to think of it, as I left the house, I heard on the TV that the weather forecast was calling for a chance of rain on Sunday. The sky was the color of lead. If I heard a little bit of thunder, I definitely would have expected a sudden evening shower. My first destination was school. Before explaining why I was going there, I needed to explain what method for killing that man I had decided upon. I decided that the most suitable death, the one I needed to give him, was the same as last year's curse, the same as the punishment their aunt had received, being beaten to death. Wouldn't beating him to death be somewhat unreliable? You may think that stabbing him with a blade would be more reliable, but this was something I had chosen after a lot of thought. You just needed to think realistically. The law, it prohibited carrying any blades longer than 10 centimeters, I think. So, the blades available to me, though long enough, were limited to things shorter than a ruler. You can probably understand how tricky it would be with such a short reach to go up against an opponent that might fight back. In that case, using a weapon with reach would be far more effective. It might not have the same precision, but you just had to hit the guy until you killed him. Both options resulted in death. With that settled, what is the weapon with the most terrifying force behind it that is also easy to carry around? By this point, you should immediately think of a metal baseball bat. I don't need to explain how terrifying a metal baseball bat can be as a weapon. Of special note is the fact that you can carry one around in broad daylight and not be thought of as suspicious. Just those 2 points would have been enough to choose a metal bat for my weapon. But there was one more reason for choosing this metal bat in particular. I will speak about it later. After school that Saturday, my classmates were still having fun playing in the schoolyard. I could show up there and it would be the same as always, so nobody would think I'm suspicious. Getting my hands on the weapon without looking suspicious was actually a factor I couldn't ignore. I didn't normally play baseball, so if I went to a sports store looking for a metal bat, it would definitely be suspicious. I can't let there be a beginning to the story, so I needed to really be careful even about that. That left school. At a location at which my appearance wouldn't be suspicious, I would acquire the weapon. I checked inside the classroom through the window, but of course there was nobody there. The only students who would stay in there were me and the others when doing club activities. Without us, the classroom after school was just an empty, unused room. Without glancing around nervously, as if I'd just gone in to get something I'd forgotten, I casually went in the entrance. It looked like the teacher was busy with paperwork in the teacher's lounge. I didn't see her in the hallway. Naturally, yet quickly as a shadow, I entered the classroom. The empty classroom was full of a strange, stagnant air that you couldn't feel normally. An empty classroom with nobody here. Maybe while no one was around, the desks creep about of their own accord, licking the floors clean of dirt. If I suddenly stepped into a place like that, would the desks, in their surprise, fly at me, crush my bones, and eat me alive? That's ridiculous. I felt regret at wasting valuable thinking time on stupid delusions. The students' lockers were lined with the back of the classroom. The one I was looking for wasn't my own. It was a forbidden locker, one I had accidentally discovered one day. Here it is. Hujo. This has to be it. If one person has one locker, then why would only Satoko have two? I'd made a fuss about it once. After that, I learned it was Satoshi's locker, and that he had the same last name as her. But of course, even though it was a locker for a student no longer here, looking inside it was still a shameless act. But one time, I let my curiosity get the better of me, and I took a peek inside. Inside, it was average and worthless. At the time, I hadn't been interested, so until now I'd forgotten what had been in it. But now, I had, dare I say it, awakened. I remembered the thing that had been there. I opened the locker and the stench of mold and sweat wafted out, like a gym storehouse that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. My face puckered up at the stench, but I looked for it. Yes, Satoshi was on Coach's baseball team. Inside the locker was a Hamanazama fighter's uniform, and the one Satoshi used, the metal bat. Yes. This was the reason I wanted to choose this bat. This murder would be carried out by me, but this wasn't originally my role. It was Satoshi's. But I would stand in for him and call myself Satoko's Nini. It was one of the rules for standing in for him. I reached for the metal bat and grasped it firmly. It was light. And yet its tip had enough heft in it, enough to easily imagine the horror if I brought it down with all my might. Satoshi, I'll give you one last chance to save your sister. Lend me your strength. You're a coward, but I will stand for you. So if you still care even a little bit about her, you will lend me your strength. There is no more suitable weapon in the world for putting that man to death than your bat. Now I just need to figure out where to hide it. Tomorrow, before the act, I would just stop by the school and grab it, because I couldn't ignore the possibility someone would see me bringing it home and think it was strange. But if I left it here, there wouldn't be a problem. Plus, tomorrow was a Sunday. Not only that, it was the day of the biggest festival in the whole village. Nobody would be coming to school. I left out the entrance and went over to a construction vehicle parked nearby. We'd been warned by our teachers not to touch it just for laughs, so none of the kids would come near the vehicle either. They wouldn't, because if she found out they touched it, they'd be in huge trouble. I quietly hid it in the shadow of the vehicle. The chances of someone operating the vehicle tomorrow were slim to none, because tomorrow was Sunday. Government workers had the day off. And, from what my classmates had said, the thing had been left here for years now. Machines that haven't been moved in years, you can't just suddenly start them up again. So I was almost definitively fine in this case. The sunlight was piercingly hot. My head grew faint for a moment. Had the heat been this harsh for the entire day? A moment of dulled thoughts like this was a moment of carelessness. I gave myself a couple of hits in the head and then looked around warily. Okay. Next, how to dispose of the corpse. Disposing of the corpse. The ultimate way, not creating a beginning, was not to let the corpse be found. It was even more important than killing him. Thinking on it vaguely, the first thing that came to mind was the swamp. Onigafuchi, the dreadful bottomless swamp revered even now, that appeared in the legends of Onigafuchi Village. Yes, the swamp called Onigafuchi was here first, and then the village took its name, becoming Onigafuchi Village. In other words, this swamp was the origin of Onigafuchi Village. That was way too many times saying Onigafuchi in a row. No one, no matter who it was, would float back to the surface of this bottomless swamp. Everyone would be swallowed down into the land of demons below the earth. That was how the stories went. If I was trying to copy Oshiro-sama's curse, then I felt that theory demanded I discard the remains and the weapon into the swamp. But they may have said it's bottomless, but I didn't actually know. And people say large creatures like humans produce a lot of gas when they rot, granting a lot of buoyancy. It was why using fairly heavy objects to hold them people down didn't work. Come to think of it, with the curse the year before last, Rika-chan's mother drowned herself in this swamp. And the criminal behind the dismemberment that went missing the year of the first curse, too, it was rumored that he tried to discard the body in the swamp and accidentally drowned in it. I never heard of the corpse coming back up or them finding it. Then, shouldn't I choose to discard the corpse there, too? I could discard the weapon there. And then, for example, if her uncle came out on a motorcycle and attacked, it would be convenient to get rid of the bike too. I knew that Sadako's uncle generally used a motorcycle for transportation. But as for the corpse, after a lot of worrying, I decided not to discard the corpse in the swamp. The drowning, suicide, and the accident were both rumors. Nobody knew if they actually happened. There were no lack of false rumors about that drowning suicide anyway, and it was possible the murderer hadn't drowned there and was still on the run. That meant no one had ever confirmed a corpse being dropped in there and then not coming back up. Then what would I do with the body? I thought it might be interesting to go with the first incident, cut him into pieces and hide him, but the preparation and work for dismembering a human body would be difficult given the amount of time I had. With that out of the question, I arrived at this conclusion, to go with the more orthodox method of burying the body. Then where would I bury it was a question related to where would I kill him. Of course, I wanted to keep my time and proximity to the body at a minimum. With that in mind, I would want to dig the hole and dump the body in beforehand, and make the location of the act and the hole close together. The choice of where to plan the crime, that I needed to be absolutely careful and thorough with. It had to be somewhere nobody would witness it, and a place with hiding places for a sneak attack. I could dig a hole for the body right there. I go over the possibilities in my head of the various destinations her uncle would head from Satoko's house. I imagined a map of the area in my head, and then I found a place that fulfilled both conditions so easily it was almost unbelievable. A bit of a back road that went through the woods. I didn't think her uncle would go deeper into the mountains of Yaoguchi on a whim. If he was going somewhere, he'd pass through these woods first. And nobody used this back way unless they had something to do at Satoko's house or one or two other places. This path was fantastically ideal, as few people used it. I would wait for him in these woods. Would an ambush actually be possible? I went into the trees and tried really hiding myself in a few places. It was extremely quiet. My senses could be sharpened here to their maximum amount. I didn't know when he'd come, but I'd wait right here for Satoko's uncle. I'd actually had some trouble coming to that decision. The question arose of whether I should somehow call the man out. Was there a risk I'd be taking by luring him there? That man made Satoko do all the shopping and errands. He seldom left on his own business. He wouldn't leave unless I worked out a plan to force him to, would he? That was the question. Tomorrow was the Watanagashi festival. Would he go out for the festival or would he stay inside? If he stayed inside, how would I drag him out of his house? That's right. Wouldn't he make Satoko go to the festival? Satoko would go to the festival. Meanwhile, I would call the man. This is the Okonomiya police station. We have the young lady from your house. Could you come and pick her up immediately? It didn't even have to be the police. This is the clinic. The young lady from your house has been injured. Please come and pick her up. Yes, that would work too. If I claimed to be the police or the hospital told him to come and then hung up on him, he'd rush there to try and figure out what was going on, wouldn't he? And just the other day, he was visited by a probation officer. He wouldn't suddenly grumble about having to get his niece and not go. It would look like child neglect. The man had no skills useful around the house. Satoko, his slave, was an essential part of his daily life. Conclusion? If he went out to the festival, I would attack him here on his way there or back. If he didn't, I would lure him out by phone. If luring him out by phone was my first step, I needed to be sure Satoko would go to the festival leaving the house. It would be convenient if I could make Mion take Satoko to the festival. She said her aunt was a district welfare officer, in other words, an ally to the probation officer. If I somehow incited Mion to take Satoko to the festival with her, well, being who she was, she'd use that fact and get her there. Satoko should just take a break and have fun at the festival with everyone. She should have a good time, reminisce on our former peaceful days, and when she went home, everything would be over. Yeah, that would be the best outcome. With that decided, I needed to dig a hole somewhere in the woods to hide the body, so it wouldn't stand out, so it wouldn't be found. Someplace nobody would see me while I was completely exposed as I buried the corpse. I had wanted it to be close to the scene of the crime, but it naturally grew further away. Deep in the bosom of the Black Forest, the voices of the Higurashi were the only sounds here, informing me that people shouldn't indiscreetly set foot in this place. Digging a hole, huh? Digging a hole with so many tree roots crawling around the ground would be far more difficult than I had envisioned. I snuck a gardening spade out here in my bag, but that wouldn't be enough. Still, as I looked into the various approaches, I managed to find a place I could dig into. Tomorrow I'd bring a real shovel from the storeroom at home. I'd manage with that. I wondered how big a hole would have to be to fit a human all the way into it. I'd probably have to dig pretty deep down. But if I was slipshod? Yeah. But if I was slipshod in these efforts, I'd let a beginning occur. I absolutely couldn't allow that. Use any amount of time you needed to. I mustn't spare any effort to utterly erase him. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was a little past 6. This was probably all I was going to get done here for today. I really wanted to dig the hole in advance tonight, even if it got dark out, but Mom would be upset if I stayed out that late. It wouldn't be good to come off as suspicious to my parents. I needed to go back home and give Mion a call soon. I needed to get her promise to take Satoko by tonight. After that, today would be done. Done. Would it be, though? Was this really everything I could do to prepare right now? I decided where to kill him. I decided how to kill him. I decided, of course, how to dispose the body. I didn't decide on a time, but I would play that by ear. I didn't have a way to decide that. What? Was that really all? Was that really all right? Have I overlooked anything? Would this really go how I planned? After all this, worries started welling up one after the other. It was only natural I'd be anxious. This would be the first and last big job of my lifetime. I could not allow failure, and I had no experience as this was my first time. I didn't have the know-how, the knack, so it was only natural I'd be anxious. The dark clouds of unease told me nothing would be the easiest way, a truly pathetic suggestion this late in the game. Have you forgotten how miserable Satoko looked? From the outside, it may have looked like I was resolute, but deep in my heart, my knees were shaking loudly. I've never actually won a single fight to my satisfaction. Could I really kill someone? I may have been planning an ambush, but my enemy was large and far older than me. He had a scary face, and he looked like he was well accustomed to fighting. Could I have... All the pieces before and after the murder were perfectly planned, but was the actual murder, the most important part, what unsettled me the most? All my preparations, all of my perfectly concealed machinations, if I didn't successfully murder him, they amounted to nothing. Damn it. After coming this far, you're pathetic, Kiichi Mahabara. If you start having these kinds of second thoughts, your ulterior motive will be obvious. Let's go home. Go home and calm your mind. Tomorrow will be a juncture in your life, the likes of which graduation, employment, marriage, and childbirth couldn't hold a candle to. A day of murder, to kill someone, for someone else's sake. With that day behind us, we would take it back again. Those mild, spring-like days we never thought would stop. Those safe, peaceful, fun times. I pedaled my bicycle hard to get back home. I felt somehow unsteady, like my body and soul weren't in alignment. A subtle shift between where the tips of my hands and feet really were and where I felt them to be. My vision was a little distant and narrow, as if the great barrier I risked my future life on had nothing to do with me. An unreal sensation. How could I put it? Everything was so far away. Fine. Feel your unease permeate you, Kiichi Mahabara. If that will turn your timidity into meticulousness and allow you to act with greater caution, then it's actually an important emotion to feel. This feeling I had never went away that night. It was the first time I'd be calling Mion's house. I searched for her in the phone book of the school gave me, and then dialed a short phone number, the kind unique to remote places. It was around dinner time. She would probably be home. But just as I started to think nobody would respond, somebody finally picked up the receiver. Hello, this is Sonozaki. Oh, I'm sorry for calling so late at night. Is this Mion? Huh? May I ask who's calling? It's me, Kiichi. Ah, oh, Ki-chan. It's pretty late. What's up? She seemed to be in a weirdly good mood, and she drew her syllables out. Right, this is the night before tomorrow's festival, so she's probably with her family having some drinks. Sorry for the late call. Do you have time right now? Sure, what is it? It's about Satoko. I heard her draw in a small breath on the other end. Satoko. She's in a pretty bad spot. I hope she's okay. The scent of sake had completely disappeared from her voice. She can't be okay. You saw too, didn't you? What she was like? She was completely worn out from all the abuse. We failed her at all this time, and now she's become like that. We didn't fail her. Everyone tried their hardest to help her. But we didn't come up with anything, and we couldn't save her. In the end, we couldn't do anything about it, and now she's become like that. I guess you're right. All I did was watch, after all. So, well, at least... couldn't we at least let her have fun for one night? Huh? Let her have fun? She's been so battered lately, you understand. That's why I want you to take her to the Watanagashi Festival tomorrow. I don't mind, but why? Why? I want you to give her a breather at least for the festival night, you know. Even if it's just one night, if she can get away from her evil uncle, then I think she'll be happy, even if it's only for a little while. Yes, But why? Why? Why what? I was having a little difficulty understanding what Mion was asking me. Why? Well, I mean, why don't you bring her, Ki-chan? Why do you need to ask me to do it? Mion was persistent about odd things. No, maybe it'd be better to say she was sharp. Well, I actually have something to do tomorrow. I can't make it to the festival. So I wanted you to take Sadako there for me. Something to do? It's nothing major. I'll probably finish quickly, but I might not be able to meet up with all of you tomorrow. Hey, Mion, could I leave Sadako to you just for tomorrow night? Mion took a long time to give a reply. I got the feeling that Mion had been acting weird for a while now, like she was flustered by emotions or something. No. Huh? Was that a sob? I made a drunk noise. Mion, are you crying? I said no. I don't want to. I don't want you to push this onto someone like me. I'm not trying to push anything onto you. It's just for tomorrow night. That was a lie. What? Mion, what was she talking about? Saying it's just for the night of Watanagashi, and then it was forever. Liar. But I guess we're even, huh? I couldn't keep the promise I made with you. I left her alone all this time. I had no idea what to say to that. Mion was clearly now talking to someone other than me. I didn't know who. All I could do was listen to her in a daze. You never came back after that, and now you called me again to push her onto me? You're so unfair. Hey, you're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? Mion, what are you talking about? When I said her name, whatever spell was on Mion was released. I am sorry. It's nothing. It's just that I got a phone call like that one you're making now, a long time ago. Was it from Satoshi? Mion didn't answer. All I could hear were sobs coming through the receiver. Sorry. I think I'm still a little tipsy. I got all weirdly emotional. Sorry, I probably scared you. I had no idea how it happened, but I was pretty sure that last year on this very day, Satoshi had called Mion and told her to bring Satoko to the festival. And when she asked why he needed her to do it, he replied the same way I just did. Satoshi didn't go to the festival, did he? Yeah. He said he had something to do and couldn't make it, and he told me to take Satoko there in his place. At the time, Satoshi said it too, didn't he? That he'd leave Satoko to you? Yeah, he did. Just for tomorrow night. The way you said it was just like how he did. I just got a little upset, caught up in a memory and all. I didn't expect this. Satoshi had given her the exact same phone call 1 year ago today. Mion kept going after that. That he was lying. That he told her it would only be for one night of the festival. I get it. A few days later, Satoshi, he disappeared. Disappeared might have been a rather vague way to put it. Whether he ran away or not, Satoshi left, abandoning Satoko. Yes, He didn't transfer or run away from home. He disappeared. And then, an idea far more indistinct than even fog crossed my mind. Satoshi made exactly the same phone call as me last year. Why would Satoshi make the exact same call? If, in the truest sense, he really made the exact same phone call as I am right now, then the incident where their aunt was beaten to death, could it... Was Satoshi... Huh? What was that? Last year, Satoko had been constantly abused by her uncle's wife, their aunt, too. Her aunt abused her the most. And on that night, in the name of Oshiro-sama's curse, she was taken from this world. If I thought about that, everything made perfect sense, didn't it? Last year, Satoko's aunt was beaten to death, wasn't she? Would it be impossible for Satoshi to have... No, but that would mean... But then Satoshi, he was a coward who abandoned Satoko and ran away, wasn't he? How could Satoshi resolve himself to kill a person to save Satoko? It was unthinkable. I actually considered that as well. Though, it'd be mean to Satoshi. A few days later, he disappeared on Satoko's birthday. When I first heard it, I flew into a rage. What a cruel day to have run away on. But now that I thought about it like this, the story changed completely. Satoshi had probably been even less calm than I was now. He was her big brother, related by blood, watching his little sister be abused day in and day out. Maybe that's why he couldn't keep calm. And that's why the corpse of their aunt, beaten to death, was so easily discovered. Satoshi lost himself in his anger and hadn't hidden the corpse. He permitted a beginning to occur. If the police conducted a full-blown investigation, it was easy to imagine why they wouldn't take long to pin down Satoshi as the culprit. Satoshi, he wished for a return to peaceful days with Satoko, and though he achieved it for a time, he had been steadily driven into a corner. And then he wanted to at least hold out until Satoko's birthday, but finally they nailed him. At the time, Satoshi had been carrying the savings he had amassed to buy Satoko a giant stuffed animal for a birthday present. He would buy the stuffed animal as her gift and then get caught. Or he would use the money and disappear. That was the choice he had been forced to make. And he decided not to make Satoko the sister of a murderer. If that was the case, then it must have been an unspeakably bitter decision. All that money he'd saved wanting to see Satoko happy, he had used it to make her sad. And he used the savings, and disappeared to Tokyo, if rumors were true. Was that how Satoshi disappeared? I don't know. That Oishi guy seems to think that way, though. Oishi. He had been slowly driven into a corner by that repulsive man's pig-headed pursuit. The circumstantial evidence is all there, but I think your deduction is wrong. They caught some crazy drug addict somewhere in the prefecture, and he apparently turned himself in for the crime. That was right. That deviant had confessed, and the incident was solved. They said he really was just a crazy person, and that he had no ties to Hamanazawa, and no relationship with Satoshi, of course. I mean, I have a pretty hard time believing the guy would lie in Satoshi's place. I don't know who's talking. That was either Mion or Kichan. I don't know. You couldn't just arbitrarily decide like that. You never know where or how humans are tied together. If that guy took the blame, then it was the perfect crime. Of course, if it was really a perfect crime, there would have been no reason for Satoshi to vanish. Plus, I don't think Satoshi had the kind of money to run away.
The day he withdrew all of his savings, no matter who I tell this to, nobody believes me, but that stuffed animal he said he was buying for Satsuko, it was gone from the display, sold. It must have been Satoshi.
Wait a minute. If he didn't use the money to flee and bought the stuffed animal instead, he would have gone back to Satsuko, wouldn't he? It seems unbelievable he'd buy it and then disappear without having given it to her.
Yeah, so now I don't know what happened. It would be one thing if he had the money, but if he used all of his savings on it, he'd be totally broke. You can't live a life on the run without money in this world.
I didn't get it. After all that, I was understanding Satoshi less and less. The two of us fell silent. I couldn't remember how we even got on this topic.
Sorry, I think we got off topic. Satsuko, right? Don't worry. I actually already invited her.
Huh? You serious?
When everybody went to the shrine to prepare for the festival, we started talking about getting Satsuko to the festival itself. So then I used the phone at the assembly hall to invite her. Her uncle was acting distant and didn't seem to care at all, but in any case, we got the okay from him. We decided to all meet up and go together tomorrow. You okay with that, Satoshi?
Stupid, I'm not Satoshi. I was a little relieved. I hadn't needed to make the phone call. Satsuko had already been invited to the festival. And not in a way that smelled of blood, a way to leave her uncle alone to create some time for me to kill him. They purely wanted Satsuko to enjoy herself, so they invited her. In the end, it was the same, but I was happy for the slight difference. Sorry. I guess I didn't need to call then. First yesterday, now today. Sorry for saying such weird things. Just forget about it.
No, I'm the one who should apologize. Losing it like that isn't me. I'm really sorry.
We apologized to each other for a little bit. Alright, I'll be going now. Good night.
What did you have to do?
As if interrupting our parting words, Mion struck straight where it hurt.
Or is it like with Satoshi, where you can't say?
Stupid. I keep telling you I'm not Satoshi.
Yeah, I know that.
I deflected her with a response that wasn't really an answer. Mion didn't hound me anymore after that. Alright, this time for real. Good night.
I don't know why you're giving me the same phone call as Satoshi-kun did, but... yeah. Never mind. I'm sorry. Good night.
I'm hanging up. Satoshi Hujo. Just who are you? I scorned you as a coward who ran away, abandoning his sister. I always thought you didn't have the right to call yourself her Nini. But now I didn't know what to think. Oshiro-sama's curse on the 4th year, their aunt's death and Satoshi's disappearance, and now me trying to carry out Oshiro-sama's curse on the 5th. Oddly enough, what I was going to do overlapped perfectly with Satoshi the day before the curse. No, that wasn't all. If we start back from Satsuko being abused, then I'd been overlapping with Satoshi for days already. When I talked to Mion before, she asked me if I was Satoshi. If that was the first impression a third party like Mion got, then it probably was true. Then, as Satoshi had accomplished, I would succeed in the murder. But that was the extent to which we overlapped. I was far calmer than Satoshi and more calculating. I could actually grow calmer and the more enthusiastic I became. That's why I wouldn't follow in Satoshi's footsteps. I would snip him cleanly out of the world and then get our peaceful lives back. Maybe Satoshi has been with me ever since I chose to use Satoshi's bat as my weapon. No, Maybe even longer than that. When I decided I'd be her Nini, maybe Satoshi had been residing within me too. Satoshi. Were you really a coward? Or are you a true Nini even now, the kind worthy of Satoko's love? I'd never met him, never spoken to him, didn't even know his face, and yet I felt so connected to him. I'd never felt that way before. July blank, 1982. Okonomiya Police Station, First Investigative Division. Chief, whatever. Prefecture Police Headquarters for the Eradication of Drug-Related Crime, Shishibone Branch Head. Regarding incident designated as Undercover Investigation. This message is to inform you that a section of the testimony records of the incident under this police headquarters jurisdiction has been found that is thought to be related to the undercover investigation of the incident in question, Okonomiya Police Station X, Haminazawa Village housewife slaughter incident. During investigation of suspect, who was arrested for possession of illegal drugs, there was a testimony related to the crime in question, and as part of it, we learned that the criminal had information only he could have known. Therefore, this record of testimony, duplicate attached, will be provided to you. If this testimonial is to be believed, then there is an extremely high chance that the suspect was the culprit behind the incident in question. In addition, the head investigator on the case received this report and inquired as to the incident with the Okonomiya Police Station, but the responsible party at Okonomiya Station, who responded to the designated undercover investigation announced by the Prefectural Police General Director on July 1st, 1982, Oshimiya Fukushine, B112, misunderstood and did not explain the incident's existence to the head investigator on the case properly. Because of this, the case head investigator was not aware of the importance of the testimony as it related to the case in question, and as a result, was negligent when combing the scene. We apologize for having left it in the dark until now. In addition, there is a postscript stating that suspect blank died while in confinement yesterday on... Okay, that police report was a little weird. So, that was about the guy who confessed to killing the aunt. That he apparently confessed with information only he would know, and then apparently he died in prison. Alright, so a majority of this episode is like, oh, I'm planning my murder and how to do it and where to do it and all this sort of junk. The real important meat of this chapter is definitely the phone call with Mion and Kiichi getting the revelation that apparently this exact same scenario played out before to Mion, where Satoshi was like, take care of her, I got shit to do, and it's heavily implied that Satoshi murdered the aunt because of the very same reasons Kiichi is going to murder the uncle. Now this kind of relates to something that seems to be kind of a theme a little bit of where you get the feeling that history's repeating itself. And it wasn't as strong in some of the past chapters, but you could still kind of feel it. And I think in the very first episode, it was mildly implied a little bit that history was kind of repeating itself a little bit. And that, like, the bad shit just keeps happening. And considering that each of these chapters starts with a, like, do-over, like it reverses the clock and
like, this events play out again, like history repeating itself, but in slightly different ways each time. It's interesting, and it draws, like, there are a lot of parallels between Satoshi and Kiichi, especially in this one where Kiichi is, like, super protective of Satoko, and, like, they beat it into your head. He's basically, he wants to be her brother. So there are a lot of that way, and it just lines up that, like, probably pretty much everything Kiichi's been doing up until this point have been basically what Satoshi did, which is why Mion is being like, especially with the phone call, Mion's like, are you Satoshi? Has the ghost of Satoshi possessed your body and you're just doing this again? What leads me to that is when the achievement popped up with the bat or whatever, the achievement name was possessed. It's like, Satoshi's ghost still around, which is implying Satoshi's dead, which is entirely a plausible thing. Because if what Mion says is true, that's like, he spent the money on the stuffed animal. He was going to give it to him. And, like, Satoshi might have even had it all planned out for it to work out that way, to be the perfect crime, to where he killed the ant, but he left the ant to be found, but he had the backup drug dealer guy that was just going to fucking confess. Like, maybe Satoshi set all of that up so that he could have the perfect crime, and, like, that guy would take the blame, and then it would leave Satoshi and Satoko alone. But something else happened to Satoshi. Like, potentially the curse got him killed too, or someone took out Satoshi, and Satoshi is most likely dead or demoned away, which is probably just generally dead, but nobody finds your corpse. So I did have a thought during this. I don't know how plausible it is. This is kind of like my shot in the dark, kind of where I think a story twist might happen. This prediction is, I think Satoko killed her aunt. I think it was Satoko. But we don't know how persistent that is, because I want to get the feeling that this might take a twist and, like, be Satoko's the one killing, or, like, maybe Satoko killed her aunt, and then potentially, because Satoko seems to have a lot of repressing stuff, like, she's repressed a lot. That's why she broke down in the tears. Like, that's repressed emotions bottled up. So it wouldn't be a far stretch to say she repressed her memories. So she might have, like, in a blind whatever, killed her aunt, and then maybe in another kind of blind whatever, maybe she also killed Satoshi. But she doesn't quite remember it, or maybe she does remember it, but she keeps that shit locked down. That would be a very, like, out of nowhere twist kind of thing, but it'd be interesting to see if it decides to go that way. I don't hold a lot of stock in that particular theory, but if I'm right, then whew, called it. If I'm wrong, then well, it was a shot. Mostly, I think this might play out to where Kiichi will attempt it, but he's gonna fucking fail. And then I think Coach is due for, like, a comeback to something and re-entering the story in some way, either as a villain or as part of the curse or something. He needs to come back and do something, and it needs to be significant. But yeah, this is very, very interesting. This is definitely ramping up. We're getting near the end now. Definitely, because stuff is definitely gonna happen. All on the night of Watanagashi. It's probably gonna end on that night too. So, see you all next time.